receive. He had an encounter with one of his friends. One of his friends was preaching the gospel to him, saying, "You need to be saved. You need to be saved. You need to know God." And then from that moment, he says that he gave his life. He gave his life to Christ. He gave his life to Christ, and then he started following God. And his roots. It was hard for me to find his roots and where he was planted. It's said that he joined a fellowship, a men's fellowship, and he had a pastor over him. But I couldn't find what church he was a part of, or what the name of the men's fellowship was, or those who were possibly discipling him. But his exposure to the supernatural at a young age, all those demonic encounters, when he now came to when he came to Christ, he was that hunger was still there. So in his book, there's a lot of accounts of, I had an encounter with an angel. I met Apostle Paul, Jesus. So it's very vivid, but which I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I'm just saying it's good to be rooted in the Word, and good to be rooted in a church community, and it's good to be just to have a holistic approach. So then that was basically his journey, and then he started a ministry called Fresh Fire Ministries. And in this ministry, he traveled the world, done a lot of evangelism, preaching. I think a year before the Florida revival, he was in Australia preaching, sharing the gospel. So he started Fresh Fire Ministry, and maybe in his early 20s or so. So from the time he got saved to the time he started walking in Christianity to the time that he started Fresh Fire's ministry was, I'll probably say, it's not that much of a long time. And I just have so much to say about this, but I personally feel like maybe it should have been a little bit longer, because even when we look at Apostle Paul, he had an encounter. It was very flash of light, boom, but then he even spent time to get discipled. He spent, was it about 12 years? 14. Yeah, he spent about 14 years learning, getting himself in the Word, making sure, okay, what gospel have I actually been baptized into? And then he even went to go and start preaching the gospel. Then even when he did that, he even checked with elders, am I even preaching the right gospel? He even got his further verifications. But yeah, so their background is different. But these are the key leaders for the revival. Next slide. So prior to this revival, there was about 2 prophecies, and these are the ones that I found. So Wendy Alec, who is one of the co-founders of Gov TV, said on July 9th, 2004, "Cry out to the East Coast, in the coming day, in this coming hour, you shall surely see the strong right arm of the living God rise in the East. The East Coast has been marked with a divine marking for revival." That's from the Unknown Prophet website. I know that sounds a bit, but yeah, that's one of the prophecies that came out before. And then next slide, a second one. So Rob DeLuca prophesied to Todd Bentley at the Downpour conference that he saw his name flying as a boomerang between different places. One of them being Canada, and another one being just very England, Australia, New Zealand. But when his name landed in America, it was specifically Florida. So, but this was about a year before and this was, and the person. Okay, next slide. So let's talk about the revival itself inside the tent. What was happening? What was going on when the Florida revival broke out? So on the 2nd of April 2008, the senior pastor, Pastor Stephen, invited Todd Bentley to come in to just because they were just planning. It was just supposed to be a 1-week revival. They weren't planning it to be about as long as it was. So they invited him to come along for it. So something that was supposed to be just 1 week ended up being 4 months by invitation. Todd Bentley also visited maybe approximately a year before, so he was familiar with Ignited Church. So the revival started on the 2nd of April 2008, and Todd Bentley was invited to come. So when the revival broke out, a lot of things that people were saying was the atmosphere, the tangible presence. Some people quoted that as they walked into the tent, it was like walking into a hot oven. Like the presence of God was just so tangible. People's notable healings and miracles. So people were healed from cancers, people were raised out of wheelchairs, mental health was restored. We'll go into the testimonies in a latter slide, just because as I was doing my research, one of the things that was a bit tricky to track was how many of the healings had like medical